The movie opens with Eric, who arrives alone on a deserted island. After a long drive, he stops beside a car, which turns out to be his friend's. He gets out, pulls out a red bag, and swaps the license plates on both vehicles. Then he wipes off the fingerprints from each car and continues on foot. Eventually, he reaches a beach house. With his gun drawn, he searches every room but finds no one inside. He realizes he's been looking for a woman named Denise, but she's nowhere to be found. Suddenly, he feels as if someone is calling his name. He steps outside to check, but there's no one around. The voice calls again, and when he follows the sound down to the beach, he finds a metal case lying near a pool of blood. Seeing the blood, Eric freezes for a moment. Then he notices a woman's bracelet nearby. He suspects it might belong to Denise, but isn't sure. Acting fast, he grabs a bucket, cleans up the blood, and throws everything into the ocean. Just then, he hears someone shouting for him again. It's Matt, Denise's son and Eric's partner, asking where his mother is. Eric replies, "I haven't seen her come here." Moments later, they reach the house and discover that Paul, their fourth partner, has also arrived. Now here's what's really going on. The four of them had stolen a painting worth millions of dollars. The plan was to lay low in the house for a while, then escape the country. Denise, the painting's owner, was supposed to arrive first, but she never showed up. Paul and Matt begin to suspect that Eric killed Denise, thinking he might have done it to keep a bigger share of the loot for himself. They don't confront him directly and instead say they'll wait a day for Denise to return. And if she doesn't, they'll move on without her. Meanwhile, Eric takes everyone's phones, puts them into the same red bag, and dumps it in the middle of the ocean. Before he can even return to the house, a strange, eerie sound starts echoing from the sea. The sound was so loud that even Matt and Paul could hear it clearly. What was strange about it was that it seemed to hypnotize all three of them. Like zombies, they walked straight into the ocean. When they finally snapped out of it, none of them could remember why they had gone there in the first place. Thinking it must have been exhaustion, they went back home and decided to sleep. But Matt was still worried about his mother. Paul tried to comfort him, saying, "Let's wait. Maybe your mom will come back tomorrow." Later that night, Paul went to Eric and asked, "Tell me the truth. Did you kill Denise to hide your relationship with her from her?" Eric swore he hadn't done anything like that. Meanwhile, Matt came out of the shower and noticed the same bucket full of blood that Eric had thrown into the ocean earlier. Horrified, he reached inside and found his mother, Denise's bracelet. The moment he saw it, his fear turned into rage. He was now certain Eric had killed his mother. Matt started yelling at Eric, while Paul tried to calm him down. The three of them were in a heated argument when suddenly there was a loud knock at the door. They opened it to find a terrified girl begging for help. Eric and Paul rushed outside to assist her, while Matt stayed back, staring at the bloody bucket, wondering who could have brought it there. At the beach, Eric and Paul found one of their friends lying unconscious, barely breathing. Eric quickly performed CPR and managed to revive her. He carried her back to the house. When Eric asked the girls, "How did you all end up here?" They explained that their boat had crashed and they had to swim to shore. When they introduced themselves, they all had strange, fairy-like names. The guys chuckled and said, "Wow, you all sound like you're straight out of a fairy tale." When the girls asked where they were from, the men made up fake stories to hide their real identities. "Why are you here?" Eric asks. "We're here for a bachelor party," he replies. The girls ask for their phones so they can call for help, but the guys have already thrown them into the ocean. Eric lies again, saying, "We made a rule not to bring phones to this party." The girls find this odd, so Matt tells them, "We'll drop you off in the countryside in the morning. Someone will help you there, and you'll get your phones back." One of the girls says she needs to use the bathroom. Paul shows her the way and picks up the painting tube they had stolen, hiding it under the bed. Then he notices the red bag Eric had tossed into the ocean. Strangely, it's now inside the house. Paul doesn't think much of it and hides the bag under the bed too. A worried Matt pulls Paul into the kitchen and says, "I think Eric's messing with us. The bag we told him to throw into the ocean is back in the house, and everything inside is still there." Hearing this, Matt gets angry and becomes convinced that Eric plans to betray them and kill Dennis. When Eric sees them panicking and comes to listen, Matt curses at him. Eric tries to calm everyone down, saying, "Control your emotions. We just need to make it through this night. Once morning comes, we'll give the girls the car keys and leave." The three guys then rejoin the girls and suggest playing a game to get to know each other. One girl jokingly says she's a princess, and everyone bursts out laughing. Another girl says she's a kung fu champion. And to prove it, she flips Eric over onto a chair. As the game continues, they all start to bond. But suddenly the lights go out. Eric goes outside to check the fuse, and one of the girls follows him. There's a growing attraction between them, but then they hear a strange sound coming from the ocean. The same hypnotic noise they'd heard earlier that afternoon. The girl notices Eric slipping into a trance and desperately tries to snap him out of it, but Eric didn't regain consciousness. He was already heading toward the sea. He was halfway there when he suddenly woke up. He saw large amounts of blood and human body parts scattered across the beach. The sight terrified all three of them. The girl who was with Eric pulled a gun from pocket, pointed it at him, and shouted, "Tell me, what did you do to my friend?" They were completely confused. Eric tried to explain that earlier that afternoon, he had seen similar marks around the beach. "Something bad is definitely happening here. Instead of fighting, we should find our friends." In reality, Matt and the girl who was with him had already disappeared. Before they could do anything else, the voice coming from the sea started hypnotizing them again. They barely managed to stay conscious. Paul told Eric they should go home and put something inside the vehicles to block out the sound so they wouldn't be affected and could look for their friends. When they reached home, they found the girl already inside searching for the map. Eric began to suspect she might be the one behind everything. He pointed a gun at her, but then the sounds from the sea returned. The noise started to hypnotize Eric, and the girl took advantage of it. She stabbed a knife into his chest. When Eric regained consciousness, he found Paul holding him. Paul took him to the bathroom and stuffed wet toilet paper in his ears to block out the noise. Eric then went outside to look for Matt, but it was too dark. Eric's foot hit something shiny, and he slipped. As soon as he fell, an invisible force dragged him into the ocean and drowned him. Paul witnessed this from a distance. To prevent the same thing from happening to him, he took his painting and tied himself tightly to one of the house's pillars with ropes so the sounds wouldn't lure him toward the sea. The noises continued through the night, but the ropes held him in place. Even though he was hypnotized, Paul didn't move toward the ocean. When morning came, Paul regained consciousness and untied himself from the ropes. Then, through a flashback in his mind, we learned that Paul had already given the police a photo of Eric and informed them about their arrival. Because he didn't trust Eric. He believed Eric would definitely betray him. Paul wanted to have Eric arrested, but by coming here, he ended up trapping himself instead. A little while later, he saw three girls standing in the middle of the ocean, singing and calling out to him. Their voices sounded just like the ones they had heard earlier. Hypnotized, Paul started walking toward them, and suddenly the girls dragged him underwater. It was then revealed that these girls weren't ordinary women. They were actually mermaids who lured people in and drowned them. In the next scene, we see Ginny sitting on the same beach, her leg badly injured, as if she had been attacked, but she somehow survived. She tore part of her clothes to wrap her wound. When she returned to the house, she found it empty. She was all alone, and the painting she had risked everything to steal was now hanging on the wall. Suddenly, an invisible force appeared and dragged Denise into the sea, drowning her. In the final scene, we see the painting again. It was actually created by the mermaids. It wasn't just a painting, but a story captured within it. All of these people had become a part of that story, and that's how the movie ends. So what do you think? Let me know your thoughts. Also, subscribe to this channel for more stories like this.